Welcome, everyone. I'm John Featherston, the President and CEO of RISMedia. Thank you for joining us for Lessons in Leadership. For those of you who are now here, our wonderful host, Dermot Buffini, is the CEO of Buffini Company, the largest training and coaching company in North America. Buffini Company holds a unique position in the marketplace. They lead more agents and coach and train more brokers than any other company in the real estate industry. They've had a major impact on the industry. They've trained and coached more than 3 million professionals in 45 different countries. Not only have they helped millions of agents, brokers, managers, business owners build great and lasting businesses, but they've also helped them build fulfilling lifestyles. Dermot has been recognized as an RISMedia newsmaker and is recognized as one of San Diego's top CEOs. Under his leadership, Buffini Company has been recognized as one of the top workplaces in San Diego for 6 years running. We're honored to have Dermot here today, where he will be taking leadership insight with Nick Bailey. So please give a warm welcome to Dermot and Nick Bailey.
Well, great to see you, John, and great to see all of you. Thanks for coming back again this year. This is our first Lessons in Leadership of 2023, and I'm super excited about our time today and our guest today. We've got a great guest lined up for you. As you know, and we talk about what the purpose of this series is to help you grow in your leadership. And there's nothing better than learning from others, learning from their experience, learning from their wisdom, learning from their journey. And my guest today is the President and CEO of RE/MAX International, Mr. Nick Bailey. Welcome, Nick.
Hello, John and Dermot. Thanks for having me. I'm sitting here as you're introducing this session thinking, man, I can't wait to learn on this. So we might have this.
I'm going to brag on you a little bit here. I have a rap sheet on you here, but it's been, we've known each other for 20 years now. It's been great for me to watch you do your thing, going through the ranks of RE/MAX International. You have, run regions. You have been a realtor yourself. You're now in the hot seat. You're one of the most prominent leaders in the real estate space. It's been very cool to watch you grow on your journey. It's also, for those folks who don't know, Nick, there's probably not a part of this business that you haven't touched or participated in, whether it's technology companies, whether it's running other organizations. You have in your last 20 years, you've really built quite a career, and it's been fun to watch you. So I have some questions for you. We're going to dig in. John, I know that we have a bunch of questions already, and Nick and I are going to talk for about 30 minutes, and then I'll call you back up, and we're going to answer as many questions as we can today. And then for those questions we don't go to, I have a little gift for those of you who are tuned in today. So Nick, are you ready to get going?
I am. Great. Sounds fun.
Well, I just bragged on your real estate career, but one of the things that people need to know about you is that at heart, you're an entrepreneur. And not only do you come from an entrepreneurial family, but you kind of started your entrepreneurial career as a 17-year-old lad, a little lad up in Montana, and then you got your real estate license at 21. So it's been quite the journey. And as I said earlier, I think, people say leaders are born, but I think a lot of times leaders are developed. And that's what I'm curious about today. So let me just kick off with this first question, and that's really, who's a leader that you've most admired and why?
Great question. I would probably say it's been my mentor that I've had for over 20 years. Jess Jesperson. He was, when I came into RE/MAX the first time, I was 26 years old, and they decided to do this mentoring program internally. And I didn't know the guy very well. I just know that he was kind of the quiet guy in the corner. And I started working with him. And to this day, he continues to be my mentor in so many ways, but also a very good personal friend. But I watched him throughout the years, not only how he handled mentorship, direct feedback, how he showed up, and most importantly, no matter who he met, the amount of respect that he deserved and that he built. And so he's just someone that I've always admired.
I remember Darryl well. He's a great man, but it was an interesting process because he was supporting a rocket ship that was taken off, which was RE/MAX, and supporting a powerhouse of an individual in Dave Liniger. What was it, would you say, that you garnished the most from his leadership as being mentored in it? What would you say are the things that stood out to you, you observed about his style that have stuck with you?
I think one of the things that comes to mind is how direct he was. And I have found that on the number of leaders that I've met, and I'll put yourself included on that, that the leaders that at least speak to me, and I think different leaders speak to people in different ways. One for me is how direct and forthcoming people are. And I'll tell you a quick story. I remember about 6 months into working with him, we were meeting on a monthly basis, and I had a franchise consultant job at the company. And he called me up one day and he kind of had this gruff look on his face. And I thought, uh-oh. And he said, I need to tell you something. I said, sure. And we'd had just nice conversations for 5 months. He said, I've really kind of been watching you, and there are other people that do the same job as you do. And quite honestly, I don't think there's anything different about you than any of the rest of them. You don't stand out, really.
Wow.
I never wanted to vomit immediately. I'm sitting here with this person I don't know very well, and he's giving me this direct feedback. I went back to my desk and I said, gosh, I think I've been working a lot harder and trying to work smarter and all these cliche things. And it was a reflective moment for me, not to say that I needed to outshine my peers, but it was for me to figure out as a young person in my mid-20s, if I was going to be a leader and some of the things that he saw in me, how was I going to find those things and bring them out? And so we still laugh about this today. I remind it when we get together and have dinner. I remind him to this day that was probably one of the biggest moments of kind of his feedback that taught me how to be direct, how to be honest, and how to deliver something like that.
All right. So, and again, you and I are just doing what we do, baby. We're just yakking away, because I'm really curious to dig in a little bit there. Because, as you're talking about that, I just think great leaders, there's people who call people out. What I heard you just say there, though, is he called you up. He called you up and to challenge you and say, really saying to you, I want to see what's going to differentiate you. He challenged you. And I know you like a good challenge. So can you just give me an idea of kind of what are some of the things that you did in order to kind of, challenge yourself to stand out a little bit?
Well, I think that's where when it comes to leadership, I believe that it's constant evolution. You've got to find the motivation from within about what you're passionate about. And people that kind of have know me and we talk real estate, like this business, I'm wildly passionate about. It just, I absolutely love it. And so, yeah, over the almost 3 decades now, crazy to say, I've gone down a path that I never expected. But along the way, what I did is anytime I would see someone command a room, give a speech, demonstrate a vision, I always had to be a student, and I still try to be today, even though I sit in a leadership role, of saying, wow, I really liked what they did. How can I emulate it in a way, but maybe in my own style? Mm-hmm. And so I think it comes down to one word, which is awareness. Mm. Is there something to be born in leaders? Sure, but do they get developed? Absolutely. But I think you've got to be hyper aware of what you're after and deliver it in a very genuine way.
Well, I think that's a great answer, because if I think about Daryl's challenge to you, he didn't tell you to be like him. He challenged you to be more like you. And what I know about you, folks who are listening today need to know, one of your leadership strengths is your ability to communicate and connect with people. And so is there, and you've definitely, you're communicating all the time, internally, externally. You've got shareholders, you've got, and you've really, it's a natural gift for you. And at the same time it's kind of a challenge. What I'm hearing for the audience is like, pay attention to what your strengths and your gifts are. Is there anybody who's influenced you in that area where you're like, I admire how they communicate? There's somebody that, like, other than anybody with the last name Buffini, which I don't want, let's just keep it about you, okay?
I know Brian has been really important.
Whatever.
But by the way, I didn't always communicate the way I do today, because I think that, like, let's take public speaking as an example, how people say it's worse than death. And right, that doesn't come maybe natural to every single person. And so you have to work on it. but I think it's being curious. And I always tell people, like, if you want to know a little bit about my personality, even as a kid, I'm a very curious person. I have to know how everything works. And so when my parents would get a new car, I would read the manual. And granted, I'm 10 or 11 years old, because I love cars. I'd read the manual and then I'd sleep in it overnight to make sure I knew how the whole thing operated. And that curiosity kind of still holds true today. And so I think when you see great communicators, and we've got one in our founder, Dave Linegar is a great communicator, great storyteller, as are the Buffinis, Brian and Dermot. You guys are great storytellers that create engagement that becomes relatable. And that didn't come natural for me. But I also had to figure out, what was I insecure about, why, and then how do I work on it? And so it's kind of admitting where you need to be a work in progress.
I think that, I mean, you talked about awareness. I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, I love the fact that you just said that, to be honest with you, because I think a lot of times people feel like they need to be a John Wayne leader. They need to have all the answers. They need to walk in the room. They need to, and you said, you know, something there, which I kind of love, to be honest with you, and something that I've done myself, which is, hey, where am I a little insecure about? Where am I a little bit like, hey, where's the chink in my armor? Where's the gap? Where's the one that I'm not, you know, where I'm worried about being exposed? And the fact of the matter is, what you're saying is, don't worry about that. Just be aware of it and take it on.
Well, and I really can't take any credit for it. I read an article just a couple of years ago that I thought was so funny. And it was, someone did a study and they said, do you know why gingers as adults are confident or maybe overly confident people? Because as kids, we were picked on and we built this shield of confidence. And so I actually can't take any credit for it. I was kind of bored with it.
Well, that's good. Well, you're using everything. Also, the other thing you said, which is, I think it's so essential, which is, don't just do the job. Like, you've learned, like I said, whether it's the car or whatever it is you're into, you're not one-dimensional about it. You know, you're learning the business from a real estate from an agent standpoint. Now, that's what I think, why I'm excited for the audience here, is because you have a wide palette. Like, you've learned it from the agent's perspective. You've learned it from the regional development. You've learned it from a leadership standpoint. You've learned it from a technology standpoint. And also, you're still curious.
And I think you talk about being licensed as an agent. I'm still a licensed broker today. And I didn't sell any houses last year, you know, while doing this job, kind of busy, but I actually sold a few houses the year before. And I did it. Yes, I was helping my all-time best friends. Sure. But at the same time, part of doing it was staying close to the front line of, yeah, I started transactions in 1996. What's stayed the same? What's different? What's a gimmick and a flashing light? And I think the experience through it and leadership is figuring out how to cut through all of the crap, if you will. Yeah. And I think, you know, in this industry, I was told by a good friend years ago, there's always a boogeyman. And if there's not one, we'll make one up. And so there's always some, you know, and I worked for the portals. I was an executive. So I was part of the boogeyman at the time, and what was real, what was not. And I think that that's also really crucial to leadership, especially in a fragmented industry, a wildly competitive industry like we have. There's a whole bunch of noise in front of you, at least there is me, every single minute of every single day. And you got to cut through it. You've got to cut through it and get to the pieces and not get distracted. Not easy, easier said than done, but I think really important.
Absolutely. I think, and again, I think it's a great point you're making, which is, there's so many demands on your job that take you in this direction, right? They take you towards Wall Street. They take you towards shareholders. They can take you towards franchisees. What I love about what you just said is to step over all that to the people you ultimately serve as agents and brokers in the field. And for you to know intimately, here's what's going on. Here's what they're facing. You know, at the end of the day, you can't, you know, you say you can't be the answer to people's prayers if you don't know what they're praying for. You can't help them solve a problem if you don't know what the problem is. You know, so I love that. And also, Nick's available to sell your house too if you need help with it. So
yeah, I'm never too busy for your referrals. Did I get that right? I think I did.
Nailed it. So what do you look for in a leader? What are you looking for in your leadership team? What are the attributes? What are you looking for in people?
One, just a fire of doing something that they love. We have so much choice that I don't understand why people do something that they don't love. Go find something that wakes you up every day that you get excited about. I think that's number one. And the second thing for me is trust.
Mm.
When I work with leaders, I think the way that you can advance your goals, your vision, all the things that drive the overall business and company is when you work with other leaders that they show up, they're genuine, and that you trust one another. I think it's an absolute unstoppable formula.
Mm-hmm. And how do they demonstrate that to you? Like, what are you looking for? I mean, how do they demonstrate, that to you, their trust, their passion? How do you see it? What do you look for?
I don't know if I can articulate it perfectly in words, but I think part of it is going back to the awareness. You sense it from people, right? Wouldn't you agree that there's just something when you meet someone, you can kind of sense that. And then depending on the person, I think trust is built over time, whether that's one day, 1 month, or 1 year. But I think knowing that people don't overpromise, underdeliver, they're not there to stab you in the back, and you have to show up and offer the same golden rule type of thing. But I think a lot of it is gut, and you just kind of know when you meet people if you're looking for it. When you're looking for it, you'll sense it.
Yeah, that's true. And I think, just add my own 2 cents worth in there. What I look for is, there's an old scripture verse saying, being faithful with the little to be given much. Is somebody who you're leading, are they, like anybody here, are you doing what you're supposed to do, what you have, before you take the next step? And I think a lot of times, especially in today, and I don't know if you're noticing this with hiring people, they want to know what their career path is. They want to know what step 5 is. And I'm like, hey, I want to know if you can do step 1. And I want to learn about you in step 1. I want to see what you can do. I want to see if you're willing to go the extra mile. I want to see if you're willing to take that seriously. They say, and add that, find your passion in it and show me what you can do. And I think the trust is, hey, I got their character, but I also see the competence in the job. But I think you're right as well. You can feel people.
Yeah, and you mentioned something really interesting about that. That, hey, I want to know what my career path is, but we don't even know step 1, but I want to get to 5. But as a leader, I also think you've got to be proactive in asking the question to say, okay, I need you to prove number 1, but tell me what your 5 or 10 year plan is, or what you aspire to be. Because I think a lot of leaders miss that step, and whether it's because they're threatened that they'll get replaced, but then it's that cliche of you should always be hiring your replacement, because you're not promotable till you're replaceable. And so if you're not finding out what somebody wants as that 5th step, you may not be identifying someone that can step into your seat so that you can continue to grow. Right. And so I think it's good for both.
Yeah, no, that's great. So let me ask you this. Tell me about the stuff that's hurt, the lessons that you've learned where you're like, oh, I didn't want to learn that lesson, but that grew me. That, because I think a lot of times, for me anyway, sometimes it's the tough times where it's like, it's taught me the most. Or, I had a little bit of suffering, or, oh gosh, I felt the pain of that. Now I better do something about it. Do you have anything like that you can pass along? Like,
yeah. Do I need to put my feet up? Do I owe you like $138 an hour? Because this is going to be a lot longer than 30 minutes. Okay.
Just go.
Let me give you my number 1 fear in business because I did grow up as an entrepreneur and came from an entrepreneurial family. Well, then I went to work for somebody else for my main career. My number 1 fear was getting fired, and not fired because I did something wrong or I, was unethical. And guess what happened to me? I got fired once. And I thought, oh my gosh, my biggest fear is coming true. Now, we don't have to unpack, the reasons behind it. The timing of the situation, it just happened. And I look at it, and it was one of the best things because it caused me to kind of reevaluate. But in my mind, I thought, and it was kind of after the downturn, and there was a lot of changes, but I always thought, no matter what, they always keep the good people. They always keep the ones that are hardest working. They always keep the ones that are getting the results. I was flat out wrong on all of that. Wow. And then there was the piece of, well, if I did, can I scoop it under the rug and I'll never tell anybody about it because that's embarrassing. I'm willing to say it right here. I talk about it on stage because it was just a really important growth moment for me in my leadership. But then how, as a leader, if I am involved in a decision that impacts someone, I also handle it and think of it differently as well, hopefully in a positive way.
That's great. I really appreciate you sharing that. It's because sometimes we speak out our biggest fear, we promote it in our life. We speak it into existence. And then sometimes it happens, you're like, well, maybe that wasn't as bad as I thought. Like, it's not the end of life. In fact, a lot of times, you know, it's the beginning of something else, right? And it certainly hasn't held you back.
Well, and you know, we talked through, I feel really, really lucky. You talk about the experience. I talk about it as the lens that I get to look through, being an agent, being a broker, being on the franchise side, then going to tech, portals. I mean, all this different experience that I had no idea I was going to get. It's the lens I get to look through and use all those experiences as kind of that litmus test. And for the 7 years following, it opened an absurd amount of opportunity that I certainly wouldn't be here talking to you if I hadn't had it.
That's great stuff. Great stuff. Look, I'm got a couple more questions for you. And then what I want to do is, because we've so many people on here, we've got a ton of questions, and I really want people to hear some of the stuff you have to share and some answers, and we'll tag team on that. Is there any book or anything or any class or anything you've taken in your own development that has kind of shifted and helped, or any book or, you know, class you've taken that's kind of top of mind that hey, that influenced me at that time?
Yeah, I over the years have engaged in personal coaching, personally and professionally. Fitness is important to me. I've had a personal fitness trainer for over 15 years. And so, you know, it's kind of like sports. Every team, every player has a coach. And even though we're in business, for some reason, we think we don't need coaches, but we do for this too. So that's been the most powerful thing that's impacted me. And I have to say, I'm envious of people that are super well read. I met someone literally last week that said they had a goal to read 52 books in 1 year. I looked at him, I said, I don't think I've read 52 books in my life. At least I started them and never got to the end because the ADD kicks in.
Yeah.
And so what I found is I did it through coaching. I did it through, when I went to college, I sat in the front row because I was too busy selling real estate to study. But I knew if I sit in the row, I could absorb. So classes, and that's my thing. But I was asked literally yesterday, and two of my favorite books are The Nordstrom Way and The Ritz-Carlton, and they both have an underlying theme. It's about service, and it's about anticipating the unexpected needs of people and delivering on them before they even know they need them. That's the ultimate theme for both of them. That I think we build these walls or these guardrails around things that we can do or not do. And we all have those businesses that you see employees just take care. And to me, it's not customer service, it's creating experiences. And those are two that I've had a number of employees read that I've passed along. But my all-time favorite book is The Little Prince. And it's a French children's book. And I read it in French my senior year in high school. And here's the thing that stood out. We as adults are messed up. As kids, if you're in the park and you're playing soccer and Dermot's there and you want to play soccer, we just play soccer. I don't ask you, where do you live? What school do you go? And do an evaluation of you and then say, let's play soccer. And so I've carried this through my life. Like if you meet me, if I go to a neighborhood party or a business cocktail party, I never ask anyone what they do for a living. I'm not qualifying them before I decide if I engage with them. You try to avoid that and let's just play soccer. And I will say because of that, I have met some people that if I had determined you do this for a living and I do this and we're different, we need to move on, maybe I would have never gotten to know them. And so that little children's book has changed how I build relationships.
So good. Great stuff, man. Well done. Love it. Listen, I know you're super busy. One little reflection on that. For a guy who's as in touch, familiar with the technology side of the world and the tools that are there, and you've built some cool stuff, and you know the real purpose of that stuff. And I think you've done a great job of seeing through some of the smoke and mirrors to apply it to what you actually really believe in, which is the Nordstrom's way, the Ritz-Carlton's way, a relational way of doing business. And I've always appreciated that about you. And so that's great stuff. I'll have to find The Little Prince. I will not be reading it in French. Okay, so touche, one to you. I will not be doing that.
Le Petit France.
Le Petit France. Okay, well, listen, another thing is I know that you guys are getting ready to celebrate your 50th year anniversary. I know that you're getting ready to celebrate that, but I also know that it's a huge milestone, and you're also preparing to lead the company towards its next season. And so I know you're super busy, so I really appreciate you being so gracious with your time, feeding us with some wisdom today. But at this time, I want to call John back up, and if we can, let's try and answer as many questions as we can, Nick, and then we'll get you on your way. Sound good?
That sounds great.
All right, Mr. Featherston.
You
Welcome
two
back.
are terrific, absolutely terrific. And a lot of questions here from the audience. So let's get right into it. First of all, a lot of people want to know, both Nick and Dermot, what's your take on 2023 so far? How is it looking to both of you? And what do you think the brokers that you serve? What's the reaction you're getting from the brokers that you serve?
Dermot, you
Go
want to
ahead,
go
Nick.
first?
Yep.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Nick.
whatever you want. You're
Okay, you want me to go first? Well,
the
okay.
prince. I am the little prince assistant.
In my 3 decades, here's what I know that's going to happen this year. 100% for sure. People are going to buy and sell houses.
Amen.
They just will. And by the way, this is part of my speech planning because yes, our big conference is coming up next week. And so I'm going to be talking about this in the market. Now, what I'm hearing already in January from a lot of markets, right after the first of the year, rates had come down, there was a bump. Showings went through the roof. There were multiple offers on properties kind of again. Rates ticked up in the last couple of weeks and slowings showed down. What it told me is there's still pent up demand. We're still short over 4 million homes in the US. The millennial population, by the way, those millennial kids are now 25 to 42. They're in their household formation years. The Z's behind them are coming up. I believe in the estimates that in the next 10 years, we're going to sell 55 to 60 million homes. We're just going to have years that we sell a little bit more and a little bit less, but people are going to buy and sell houses every single year. And so what I tell people is stop with the headlines because whether interest rates are up, down, inflation up, yes, it's family events, it's marriage, divorce, children, caring for a loved one, a job that drives our business, and it happens every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, brilliant.
Dermot, your comment?
Yeah, I don't have. The only thing I would add to that maybe a little bit is, you know, as a coach, mindset wise, you know, Nick mentioned the headlines. Our headline here at Buffini Company with our customers is, we've heard about the recession, we've just decided not to participate because we're going to be too busy making our own headlines. We're going to be, you know, Nick said, like, there is demand. There are people buying, there's people being born, there's the life's moving on and people are looking for a place to live. So if your mindset is it's doom and gloom, you're going to miss that opportunity. You're not going to see it. But if your mindset is, I'm going to get busy, and let's be honest, good times do not build good habits. Even a turkey can fly in a hurricane. And guess what? The winds have stopped blowing. And there's some people walking around going, I'm not taking off. We're encouraging, what we're doing with our business, what we're encouraging our clients is fix those things and address those things in your business that you don't get to do in a bad market because things are good. But I think you got to get your headset right. And I think, and your mindset, and I think what Nick said is, hey, life's going to go on. You've got to jump on that wave and go looking and get busy. So we don't control the market. We don't control the economy. We don't control the interest rates. We just control this. So I just think it's a really big deal that you believe that you're going to win and you're going to outlast everybody and you're going to outwork everybody this year, and know that it's going to turn, and the turkeys will be back and the hurricanes will be back, but you'll be prepared. So that's what I hope for 2020.
That turkey flapping thing again? That was really good.
I have to it's kind of here, Nick. If you want to do that on stage,
That's right.
You don't want to go wide, okay?
I'm sorry I asked.
We'll try to swing back to how we
That's a real look into the depth of our true conversations, by the way. That's how we really are. It's none of this market stuff. It's really like, how do you do that? Can you show me?
So from the audience again, they're interested in Nick, your viewpoint on leadership strategies in the shifting market, but they want to know there are opportunities. You're talking about the opportunities that are coming up. You believe in the future of the industry, but what about their focus? What should their focus be as far as recruiting and retaining agents, as well as growing, whether it be if they're an agent team or if they're a brokerage business? What are your insights as far as growing their business in the next 6 months?
Support. If you're a broker, owner, manager, or team leader, it's support. Support at its highest levels have been absent the last couple of years because I believe there have been a lot of brokerages and agents, a lot new to the business. I mean, we went from 980,000 to 1.6 million realtors, 84,000 brokerages to 105,000. And I think a lot of them were propped up by this artificial pedestal of the market. And so now it's, whoa, we got to reevaluate our value. And I think it's support all around. Let's look at what kind of a broker, owner, manager, or team leader role. It's to develop people. It's to support them. It's to create an environment where an independent mindset can do great things. And then on the agent level, get loud. And I associate this back to when I got my license when I was 21. Guess what my first spend was? Marketing, business cards, yard signs, flyers. I had to tell the world I was in this business. But what I have seen is when markets contract, which is what we're experiencing now, guess what the number one thing agents stop spending money on? When they're trying to right size their expenses, they pull back their marketing. And so, granted, there are ways to do marketing that are more efficient, but don't get invisible. Don't furlough yourself, because the agents that do will fall into the reason that 87% of agents that get a license don't have it 5 years later. Get loud. Be the voice of reason, because your buyers and sellers need you more now than they did the last year or two.
Nick, get loud. I love it. Dermot.
Amen, amen, amen. Absolutely. There are people going to wait out. They're going to get small. They're going to be like, I'm just waiting until Putin gets his act together. Once the balloons go away, I'm going to come back out to play. It's like, no, now's the time. And people need to know what's really going on. One little thing maybe to add to the brokers is to evaluate, do you have who you want at your company? Did you just grow because the hurricane was blowing? Who do you want to work with? Who can contribute towards your goals? Who do you like working with? Do an evaluation. It's like inventory. It's like, nah, that person can't be here anymore. And then also, who do I want to be here? Who do I want to attract? Who do I want to develop? Who's going to bring energy to my world that I'm going to drive to the office every day going, I'm so glad Nick's there. I'm so glad John's there. And I would say that's the opportunity to do that work that, previously you don't do that stuff in good times. You're just trying to keep up with the madness. So yeah, amen to everything.
So with that, you're both of you, when you're talking about, we're leading right now in uncertain times. So the audience is asking, what can they be doing over the next just 90 days that prepares their firms and their agents for the upcoming spring market? What would you recommend, Nick? If you're back in those trenches, what would you recommend?
On the brokerage side, if I'm a broker, owner, or manager, I think that you have to evaluate the business and make sure you're right sizing revenue and expenses. I think that in this business, it's easy to spend on things, and it reminds me of, I saw TikTok the other day of cancel your subscriptions. Like, it's amazing how much, even as consumers, we have the autopilot. I got HBO Max, I got Apple TV. I haven't watched any of them for 90 days. Why do I still have them? And I think it's easy for people to get on those reoccurring expense charges as a brokerage. Reevaluate what are the things that make the most meaningful impact for agents. Because the reality is, if you're a broker, owner, or manager, you're not in the real estate business. You're in the real estate agent business. And so make sure that all your services and your support are designed to be in that Nordstrom way, that Ritz-Carlton effect, to support agents to allow them to grow their business. And so I think watch those expenses, right size the revenue, but also show some certainty. Have some confidence about the market. People are going to buy and sell, but have some confidence about yourself, and that you're leading a business. And this should be something that you do on a regular basis, but this is a forcing function to have you look deep into your business and make tough decisions of maybe some things you should stop doing.
Love it.
Dermot?
Yep. I think that's the cure. I mean, at the end of the day, what they say, if you're an entrepreneur, it means uncertainty is part of the job. Where's my next client coming from? Where's my next check coming from? Where's my next opportunity coming from? Will I be able to pay my taxes? Will I be able to pay? It comes with the territory. If you're an entrepreneur, Nick, you know this, like, that's what you sign up for. But the opposite of uncertainty is clarity. It's like Nick just said it. You can be certain that there's people going to buy and sell homes this year. You can be certain that there's somebody going to need your help this year. There's things that you can be certain of. There's expenses that Nick just said. It's like, I'm pretty certain HBO Max is not necessary to my business. It's not going to grow me. It's not going to grow anybody I work with. So I think get clear on what's really happening. And as Nick said, that's just so practical. It's so practical. But I tell you what, it's a great exercise to go through. And if you get that, as Nick said, you'll have confidence. You'll know to step forward. And then, as I said, focus on your customer. It's like, who are the people you want to work with? So
let me add, Dermot, one thing as you're talking, move fast.
Yes.
I think that people wait and see in our industry,
Yep.
too long. Move fast, be decisive, make some decisions. Not every one of them is going to be right. Mine certainly are not. But move fast.
That's good. Good.
So let's review a little bit here. I think all three of us are in agreement that the opportunities in front of us, the marketplace right now, starting now and the remainder of 2023, there's significant opportunities for the agents, for the agent teams, for the brokers who are focused and have a desire to win, okay? But there's also, would you agree, there's also an opportunity for mid-small brokerage firms, as well as the larger firms, to be seen as the de facto leaders in their marketplace, leading through this uncertainty, and an opportunity for them to grow their current firm, to not just retain the agents that they have because of positivity, but to recruit. And if you agree with that, Nick, Dermot, if you were a broker owner of a firm that had 50 agents or less, what would you be doing to grow your firm in the next 6 months?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think when I look at the future of the brokerage business in, say, the next 3 to 5 years, if the three of us want to go out and have a firm and we just, all three of us go sell a ton of real estate, we can have our own little thing and go do it. And Dermot, I think I got this term from Brian years ago, that then there's this death valley that exists. There's margin compression. There has been for decades. That's not going to get any easier, but you need scale on your side, especially with some of the technology needs. I think it's very difficult for a certain size firm, depending on market, to be in that death valley and then provide or compete with the level of services needed for agents to service their buyers and sellers. And then that brings in the ancillary services. When I think about the next 3 to 5 years, I think that midsection becomes more and more difficult. That I think that we're going to move, and we have been and will continue, from not just margins on the brokerage business, but that's why you're seeing companies, 50 years ago when RE/MAX started, 10 agents was a big office, 15 agents was huge, and 20 was unheard of. Now you see companies with thousands of agents spanning multiple state lines, and you have ancillary built into it that drive the overall margins of the brokerage business. More and more are going to go that way. And I would say reevaluate. Sometimes there are no egos in this business, right? Dermot and I certainly don't have one. John, you're questionable, but no, sometimes we have to put that aside, and maybe you need to join forces with someone in your local market and in order to get stronger. And so I think that my advice on people, with people that are thinking about this, is look at all the options, not just one option. And maybe it means not go at it alone. Build strength with others in your market if you want to build your presence in your market share.
All right.
Yeah, no, that's great stuff. I think Nick, you either got to get big or you got to get tight. You got to know who you are. You got to, same as leadership. It's like just awareness of what sort of business do I want to be? Do I want to be a producer with 10 agents, or do I want to go big? Here's what I will tell you. We're coaching, we're training thousands of agents. I'm hearing from it all the time. The confessional is going on. There's a bunch of agents who are currently looking for a new home. Their previous home, the broker's in trouble. Maybe the brand has run out of some juice. They're looking for somebody who can help them up, support them. Nick used the word support earlier. Absolutely. It's times like this, people want to come together and be supported. Candidly, if you're not coaching, if you're not training your agents, you can't lead them. A busy person and a productive person and an on-purpose person, and somebody's like, here's where I'm going to go get my business. Here's what I'm going to say. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's what I'm going to send. Our mentors are they're running classes left, right, and center right now because it's an opportunity to bring people together. Sure, they've been operating training over Zoom. Nothing like getting close person to person. I'm going to take a guess, Nick, that you probably have the biggest turnout, one of the biggest turnouts you've ever had for R4 for your convention.
Maybe the largest in 17 years.
How many people are coming?
Nearly 10,000.
And why are they coming?
Because they want to hug, touch, and learn from each other.
Exactly. So you take that, you don't have to be a grandiose, Nick's going to leave 10,000 people next week. You can do that with 10 people, but that principle, it's there if you're paying attention. And your job is to create the environment for that to happen for your agents. If you're an individual agent or a team, your job is to create that for your team. And as an agent, your job is to create that for yourself and go looking for it. So I know we're getting all fired up right now.
No, you're spot on, and it leads to another question that the audience wants to see. And I think they're going to want to hear this next week, and I look forward to being with you next week in Las Vegas. The question is, how are you going to help agents with their money management? They're already being helped with all sorts of webinars, classes, sessions on what they should be doing as far as to attract new listings, to market the listings, use of technology. But they want to be successful in a broad sense. What are we doing to help the agents with their money management, to both of you?
Well, we have a secret that we help with at RE/MAX, and that's called we sell a lot of houses. How we're going to help agents is help them look through the lens of selling more houses, which drives revenue. I believe because of the 128 consecutive months of run up in pricing and this amazing decade of a seller's market that just kept building and building, and then hockey stick the last 2 years, a lot of competition has been birthed. And when usually new entrants to any sector, but especially real estate, if you haven't been around and built value, then you compete on price. And I look at this industry as in a race to the bottom, is what I've called it for years. And we've taught agents to put first saving $50 a month versus maybe making that extra $8,000 in that closing. And so that's our secret is production. And I believe when you really, when you teach people, if they're selling 4 houses, saving $100 isn't going to help. Selling 4 houses and then selling 8, that helps. And then going from 8 to 16, now you have a career and you have some way to support your family. And that's absolutely, in my book, the #1 thing that we at least do here at RE/MAX that I think is so important for the industry, and it would change the churn rate if more people focused on it.
Mm-hmm.
Dermot?
Yep, I can take some of what Nick has just already said and maybe consolidate it in one place. If you show me your checkbook and you show me your calendar, I can tell you what you value, because I can see what you spend your money on and I can see where you spend your time. It is time to do an audit on those 2 things. Reduce expenses, increase productivity, the right things. It's not doing more, it's doing more of the right things. Nick said it. I asked Nick, what book has he read? And he mentioned 3, but what I heard Nick say was he invested in himself. The best investment you can make this year in a stock is in your own stock. What investment do you know, whether you put in your business, you're going to return on a rate of return on? Spend fearlessly for needed things. Spend fearlessly on those things that you know you can absolutely depend on. And then those things that you can't say hell yes to, get them out of there. And I think that's what we're doing. And again, I said to you, nobody wants to be coached and trained when the good times are rolling. Right now, we have people pouring in our doors because they're like, hey, I need to get my act together. And some of them were like, we really wish you had got here 6 months ago, but that's okay. We'll get going now. So I just think it's a consolidation of what we just said. What's the conference you need to go to? There's 10,000 people going to Las Vegas next week. They're going to get on airplanes. They're going to leave their family behind. They're going to take time away from their business. And they're going to go and connect as a unit to get a perspective, to zoom out. And they're going to be around 10,000 people who are going, me too. I'm not alone. I'm ready to go. And this man's going to fire them up on stage, and he's going to lead them with his wisdom to say, here's what I believe you should do. And that's what we should all be looking for, is a guide in this time.
Both of you, very well said. And, Nick, you're sitting in the seat of that used to be occupied by my good friend, Dave Liniger, who's your chairman, okay? And I have been so fortunate in my career to go to almost every single annual convention, going back, not quite back to the days when it was at the Thunderbird Motel, but a long,
1976.
yes, a long, long time. You're going to have 10,000 people. And one of the consistent things that RE/MAX has done throughout the years is to bring together your agents so that they can converse. And Dermot asked earlier, why are they getting together? It's to touch the field, to get to know each other, to network, to create referrals, etc. Year after year, RE/MAX has led the industry in productivity. The number of transactions per agent is absolutely outstanding. The number of transactions per office is, leads the pack. How are you going to take this company and continue to lead the industry in these uncertain times? Give us your insight of what you're going to be doing a little bit differently over the next year that'll make RE/MAX not only retain its crown, but chart new territory.
So I think there's two ways. And by the way, John, when you started that and said, you're sitting in the seat and I knew where you were going, actually shook a little. I mean, David Gale's seats are and shoes are big to fill. And I tell you, I try not to think about it because I have mad respect for the fact that I wouldn't be here at this company if 50 years ago they hadn't taken a leap to do this. So I don't take it lightly, by the way. In fact, it scares me to death when you articulate it. Okay, so that being said, that's first and foremost. When you're number 3 or 4 in a market, you maybe only have 1 or 2 competitors pulling at your ankles to try to take you down. When you become like number 1 in productivity and things that we're very proud of, and this isn't a RE/MAX commercial, but you have everybody pulling on you. And so first and foremost, the one thing that I am just absolutely passionate about is protecting the things that are important to the foundation that this company was built upon and that our agents are good at. Double the number of years of experience, 2x the average number of production than the next largest competitor, the most professional designations, like these things that were really important, most brand name awareness. People forget to talk about those things that were all the goals 25 years ago that they say, oh, now you've got it. So now what are you going to do next? Well, I think it's really important. And it's twice as hard to keep the things that you've accomplished than it was to maybe get to them. Mm-hmm. And so that's top of mind for me is how do we protect those things that are absolutely crucial to our culture and our brand? And number 2 is I don't follow all the gimmicks. I know the foundation of this business is relationship. I believe that in the rest of my lifetime in this business, which I think I've got a couple more years, that the agent is the most important part of the transaction. Tech won't replace them, but an agent that doesn't do tech will get replaced. That's 2 different things. And you have to look at where the gaps are in the business to innovate, not the shiny object that's in the sky today that everyone's talking about or the boogeyman. But let me give you one real example. And I'll be talking next week a lot about AI and how it's really new to real estate. It's not new, but it's pretty new to real estate, and how that's going to change the landscape. But on average, 94% of buyers say, John, you're my agent at the closing table. I'd use you again. You were great. But only 13% do. Agents get busy. They don't keep in touch super well. The once a month boring newsletter is not doing the job. And so that's a gap that we can solve for in the business, that we can use tech and AI to create a personalized customer experience to help the agent be double or duplicate themselves in order to stay in touch with these databases and their sphere that are growing at masses. So I look at where are the gaps in the business and how do we execute on it. And lastly, I'll say this. I ask people, what's the number 1 technology that's impacted our business in the last 10 years? And I love asking audiences this because people say, the mobile device or this. It's e-signature, right? It's not sexy to talk about. E-signature, who cares? But guess what? As an agent, I didn't have to drive 45 minutes to get a price change on a listing. It changed my efficiency in a dramatic way, and it made the buyers and sellers' lives a little bit easier. Those are the things that I look for to say, now let's go forward in the next 2 to 3 years and use the innovation that's in front of us to solve the gaps, to make the agent more efficient and make the buyer or seller experience better.
Dermot, if you don't mind, add your thoughts, and I want to circle back on something that Nick said.
Well, I think, you know, we've a unique place in the industry because we're kind of like, we raise the kids. You know, I said the confessional, they tell mom and dad one thing, but they're coming into us going, oh, yeah, I'm not doing my homework and I don't do that and I don't know where it is. So, and, you know, as Nick said, it's like, you know, using technology in a smart way to accomplish something that you're designed to do. For us, I mean, maybe because Nick and we chat a lot, but at the end of the day, our focus is on our customer. And if we don't get results for our customer, if they don't get the results, the financial results, if they're not working to their potential, if they don't have a life, we haven't done our job. There's only two numbers I manage every year. I look for in our clients. It's number one is how much did they make? Last year they made 370 grand. I'm like, great, that's fantastic. On average, teams 570. Great, doing a great job. The other number I'm looking for is how much time did they take off? Our average client last year took 5 weeks off, paid for, planned, prepared for, earned, enjoyed, to fuel them. And I'm going to double down on that next year. Double down on that next year and support, you know, our RE/MAX agents that we work with in achieving that. And because at the end of the day, I think where we've always partnered well with RE/MAX, and Nick mentioned it, it's like RE/MAX superpower has always been, we just sell a ton of homes. Like, it's a pretty simple focus. It's like, we're just going to sell a ton of homes. And if that's your focus and that's what you do, you're going to do very well. And candidly, that's the people who we love to work with. That's their mindset. We just support them with a structure. We get them out of their own way. We get them to play to their strengths. So this is not rocket science. There's nothing new here we're talking about. There is some new stuff that's kind of like, ooh, use that in a smart way. That's going to propel you. This stuff here. And that's where hopefully, you know, between, you know, what we're doing here is to actually, with our wisdom, our collective knowledge, to be able to go, that'll work. I don't know what the hell that is. And I think there's so many people who, all of us need that direction and that clarity. And as Nick said, trust from trusted source. Say, you do those three things, you're going to win. And so our goal is just to really focus on our clients this year, see what else we can be doing for them, and we want to delight them.
That's very well said. Nick,
well said, Dermo.
Yeah, absolutely, very well said. And you know what? The proof is in the pudding, because people come to you, Dermot, as they come to Nick and RE/MAX, because you have established independently, both of you, 2 clubs that people in this profession want to be part of because they can better their personal and their professional performances. And Nick, I want to get back to the bedrocks of the 50 years of RE/MAX that you're building upon, and you're adding new things that'll help not just improve the performances of the basics, such as AI, being intertwined to, you know, making sure your members know how they can utilize that effectively and efficiently in the months and years to come. Education is a forefront, and always has been a forefront to RE/MAX, and I see you shaking your head, and I understand that. But there's another bedrock to RE/MAX that I know you stand strongly upon, and that is in inclusivity and allowing anyone and everyone, race, color, creed, religion, to be part of the RE/MAX organization. And you know better than I, when RE/MAX started, Dave Luniger and Gail began doing something just outrageous, when that was recruiting women to be part of the sales process of RE/MAX. Unheard of at the time in most marketplaces. But I want to just spend a minute or two on the 10,000 people coming to Las Vegas, and all of the respective groups. And you've got 1 million different meetings to make in the first 4 days, 5 days out there. What are you going to be telling them as far as the growth of RE/MAX over the next year? How are you going to be growing domestically, internationally? And can you unequivocally state RE/MAX is the bedrock that it has been, the haven for top producing agents?
I think the proof to your last statement sits in the numbers. But I will say this, I love that you touched on something which goes back to our foundation of when Dave and Gail expanded this thing, not only outside of Denver, but to other states and then other countries. It was always met with, it won't work here. We're different. My market's different. And keep in mind, we talk about that number that's coming to hang out next week with us. We have 73 countries that will be represented. And so the fact that we span the globe, I was just with 15 of our global owners day before yesterday that came in early, and I'm listening to their markets from India to Panama to Taiwan. And the beautiful part is how we grow in the future. And we're on a race to 200,000 agents. We're right now the largest that the company's been in 50 years at 144,000 people, spanning over 110 countries. But we can get to 200,000 agents. And it's all because it's not different countries or it's really about finding like-minded entrepreneurs that are passionate about this business and the power of the network, because it's lonely at the top. All these people are running their own businesses. And to Dermot's point, his comment earlier, the idea that you get to share and learn from each other, and that's why they're showing up. And that's what creates such a powerful network. And we have initiatives like we're going in bigger than we ever have on conversions, mergers, and acquisitions. We have financial incentives out in the marketplace to say, hey, if you're an independent and need a bigger brand to compete, you need better technology, you need some of this. We've never done that in our 50 years. We grew one agent at a time. And so that was part of the strategy introduced last year. We announced going bigger on teams and the economics that have come a long way in 50 years. And so we have some very strategic type of things to help grow, but the high level is there's still demand out there. And as long as the people say it won't work here, we're going to continue to prove them wrong.
Great. Dermot?
Hey, I just appreciate, as I said, Nick is a friend of mine. It's been great to watch you on your career grow as not just a leader, but as a man, a father, a husband. I'm excited.
Don't get me all choked up. I'm a softie inside.
Well, you're a good guy, and you've done very well. And I appreciate you've shared a lot today, and it's helped me. And I'm no doubt it's helped a lot of people in here. And I'm excited to see what you do in this next season. And as you get RE/MAX to that huge milestone, it's just kind of cool to say you're not done. You're only getting ready to get going. So that's really cool. So we're cheering you on. As I said, I know you're busy, so I appreciate you taking this time. I know we tried to answer as many questions as we could here, and typically that's how this goes with these lessons in leadership, right, John? We got a bunch of questions. We can't get through them all. Hopefully, I think we've nailed quite a few today that will help some folks. But I've got one thing for you guys. If you want to check this out, one of the things we're doing is we're opening up our coaching consultants to answer your questions. So yeah, just pop out your phone. You can scan that QR code. I'm gonna spend any more time on it. We'll send it out to you. Thanks a million, John. Thank you, Nick, and we'll see you soon for another Lessons in Leadership.
Thank you both.
Thank you both.
Have a good time next week.
Nice job.
All right.